Ambassador Park Ji-yoon tugged at the hem of her formal blue coat as she prepared to enter the Galactic Council chambers. The massive doors, carved from ancient trees of a world long forgotten, loomed before her. Despite her calm exterior, her heart raced. Today marked humanity's first official address to the assembled leaders of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. "Ready, Ambassador?" asked her aide, offering a reassuring smile. Ji-yoon nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The doors swung open silently, revealing a vast circular chamber. Hundreds of different species filled the tiered seating that rose like a massive amphitheater. Some looked almost human, while others defied description, beings of crystal, light, or shapes that human minds struggled to comprehend. Ji-yoon walked with measured steps toward the central platform. She felt the weight of countless eyes following her movement. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having discovered faster-than-light travel only 30 years ago. Most species here had been traveling the stars when humans were still painting on cave walls. Ambassador Park Ji-yoon of Earth, announced the council speaker, a tall, willowy being with silver skin. "You may address the council." Ji-yoon stepped onto the speaking platform, which illuminated in response to her presence. She began her carefully prepared speech about cooperation and mutual benefit, but she had barely finished her introduction when a commotion erupted from the upper tiers. A massive figure rose from the shadows. Even from a distance, Ji-yoon could see the imposing presence of a Beck warrior. The Beck were a species known for their military prowess, tall, heavily muscled beings with thick gray skin lined with natural armor plates. This particular warrior wore the elaborate insignia of high rank. "I object to these proceedings." The Beck's voice boomed through the chamber without need for amplification. He stepped forward into the light, revealing battle scars that marked his face like a map of his conquests. The council speaker raised a hand. "War Commander Kim Tae-ho, the council recognizes your right to speak, but this interruption is highly irregular." Tae-ho ignored the rebuke and pointed a thick finger directly at Ji-yoon. "I challenge the legitimacy of this human to speak before this sacred body. The Beck Empire has observed these humans from afar. They are violent, divided, and technologically primitive. They have no place among the stars." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Ji-yoon stood perfectly still, knowing that her response would define humanity's place in galactic politics for generations. The council speaker turned to Ji-yoon. "Ambassador, do you wish to respond to this challenge?" "I do," Ji-yoon said, her voice steady despite the thundering of her heart. "War Commander Kim speaks of violence while wearing the marks of 100 battles on his skin. He speaks of division while his empire stands apart from council initiatives. As for our technological advancement, we achieved in centuries what took many here millennia." Tae-ho's face darkened with anger. Pretty words from a soft species. He descended the steps toward the central floor, each footfall echoing through the now silent chamber. "The Beck Empire has recently rejoined this council after 5 centuries of isolation. In our absence, you have forgotten the old ways." He reached the speaking floor and towered over Ji-yoon. Standing before him, she barely reached his chest. He pulled from his belt a ceremonial dagger and held it high. "I invoke the right of challenge. If humans wish a voice in galactic affairs, they must prove their worth as the ancients did, through combat." Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. The council speaker stepped forward urgently. "War Commander, that protocol hasn't been invoked in over 2,000 cycles. It is considered barbaric by modern standards. Yet it remains in the founding charter," Tae-ho replied, a dangerous smile revealing sharp teeth. "Unless these humans wish to admit their weakness and withdraw their petition for full council membership." All eyes turned to Ji-yoon. Her advisors rushed forward, urgently whispering for her to reject the challenge and seek diplomatic alternatives. The human delegation looked horrified. Ji-yoon studied the Beck warlord carefully. Behind his brutish appearance, she saw calculation in his eyes. This was no impulsive action, it was a carefully planned move to humiliate humanity before the entire galaxy. To the shock of everyone present, Ji-yoon stepped forward and took the ceremonial dagger from Tae-ho's hand. With one swift movement, she drew it across her palm, letting drops of red blood fall to the ancient floor of the council chamber. I accept your challenge, War Commander, she said clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. Name the time and place. The council erupted into chaos as Taeho stared at the small human female who had just sealed what many believed would be her death sentence. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Ji-yoon sat alone in her quarters aboard the human diplomatic vessel, studying ancient Beck combat texts on her tablet. 3 days had passed since she accepted War Commander Kim Taeho's challenge, and the news had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The human delegation was in disarray, with many calling for her replacement before the duel could take place. A soft knock interrupted her concentration. Enter, she called. Lee Hanjail, her chief advisor, stepped inside. His face showed the strain of sleepless nights. Ambassador, the transport to the Beck ceremonial arena leaves in 2 hours. The council has sent final confirmation of the rules. Ji-yoon set down her tablet. And combat will be to surrender or incapacitation, not death. Small mercy, I suppose. Hanjail handed her a data pad. Also, your parents have called again from Earth. That's the 5th time today. Ji-yoon sighed. I'll speak with them before we depart. After Hanjail left, Ji-yoon walked to the viewport of her quarters. Stars streaked by as the ship maintained its position in orbit around the neutral council world. Somewhere on the surface, Taeho was likely preparing as well, perhaps laughing at the foolish human who dared to challenge a warrior bred for combat. What Hanjail and the others didn't know, what no one in the delegation knew, was that Ji-yoon had spent her youth studying not just diplomacy but ancient human martial arts. Her grandfather, a master of traditional combat forms, had insisted she learn despite her diplomatic career path. The body must be as strong as the mind, he had always said. Would it be enough against a Beck warrior? Probably not. But Ji-yoon had another weapon, knowledge. The door chimed again, and this time a medical officer entered. Ambassador, I need to conduct your pre-combat physical examination, the doctor said, setting down a case of equipment. Ji-yoon nodded and submitted to the scan. Doctor, have you ever treated a Beck? The doctor looked up from her instruments. Once, during my residency. Their physiology is remarkable. Triple-layered skin, reinforced skeletal structure, dual cardiovascular systems. Weaknesses? Ji-yoon interrupted. The doctor hesitated. I shouldn't. Doctor, I'm about to face one in combat. Any information could save not just my life but potentially humanity's standing in the galaxy. The doctor sighed. Their joints. The same dense musculature that gives them strength limits flexibility. And their respiratory system, they process oxygen differently than we do. Extended exertion can lead to a buildup of toxins in their bloodstream. Ji-yoon filed this information away carefully. Thank you, Doctor. 2 hours later, Ji-yoon found herself aboard a council transport heading to the surface. The ship landed at an ancient arena carved into the side of a mountain. The structure predated even the council itself, built by a long-extinct species who believed conflict should be contained and ritualized rather than spread across worlds. As Ji-yoon disembarked, she was met by a delegation of council officials. Ambassador Park, this way to the preparation chamber, said a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin. The preparation room was sparse stone walls with a few benches and a weapons rack filled with training implements. Ji-yoon changed into the simple combat garment provided, a fitted gray tunic and loose pants that allowed for movement. She began her warm-up routine, careful stretches followed by practiced movements that helped center her mind. A commotion outside the door drew her attention. Hanjail entered, followed by a hulking figure that filled the doorway, War Commander Kim Taeho himself. It is traditional for combatants to meet before battle, Taeho said, his deep voice echoing off the stone walls. He had removed his ceremonial armor, wearing only a simple combat suit that did little to hide his imposing physique. Ji-yoon stopped her exercises and faced him. Up close, the size difference was even more dramatic. His gray, plated skin made him look like a walking fortress. I am surprised you came, Taeho said, studying her with yellow eyes. Most would have withdrawn by now. That would dishonor my people, Ji-yoon replied calmly. Taeho's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. You speak of honor. Yet I wonder if you understand the gravity of this moment. The Beck have been warriors for 50,000 years. What preparation could you possibly have that would matter? Ji-un met his gaze steadily. War Commander, do you know why humans advanced so quickly from primitive technology to the stars? He tilted his head slightly. Enlighten me. Adaptation, she said simply. We learn. We change. We find ways to survive against impossible odds. It's what we do best. For a brief moment, uncertainty flashed across Taeho's face. Then he straightened to his full height. We shall see, human. The combat begins in 1 hour. I suggest you use the time to make peace with whatever gods you worship. After he left, Han Jaeol approached her. Ambassador, there's still time to withdraw. No one would blame you. Ji-un shook her head. If I withdraw, humanity will be seen as weak for generations. This isn't just about me. She picked up a practice staff from the weapons rack and tested its weight. Besides, I think I just saw something important. What's that? Ji-un smiled slightly. For just a moment, I think he was afraid. The ancient arena filled with spectators from across the galaxy. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds packed the stone seats that rose in steep tiers around the circular combat floor. The air hummed with the sounds of different languages and translation devices. Ji-un stood at the eastern entrance, watching as council officials prepared the arena. Her heart beat steadily in her chest. Fear still lingered at the edges of her mind, but her grandfather's teaching echoed in her thoughts. Fear is just energy. Direct it where you need it. Han Jaeol approached with a worried expression. The council speaker has announced that per ancient tradition, you may select the weapons since you were the one challenged. Ji-un nodded. Good. Ambassador, the Beck are masters of nearly every weapon in the galaxy. Whatever you choose. I know, Ji-un interrupted gently. Trust me. A deep horn sounded, echoing across the arena. Ji-un stepped through the arched doorway onto the combat floor. The crowd's noise swelled as she walked to the center of the circular space. The ground beneath her feet was covered in a thin layer of blue sand, imported from some distant world. From the western entrance emerged War Commander Kim Tae-ho. Even without his armor, his massive form drew gasps from those who had never seen a Beck warrior in person. Thick muscles moved under his gray, plated skin as he strode confidently toward the center. They met in the middle of the arena, where the council speaker waited beside a table covered with a black cloth. Combatants, the speaker's voice carried across the now hushed arena, you stand before the council and representatives of 1,000 worlds. This challenge, invoked under ancient law, will determine the standing of humanity within our galactic community. The speaker turned to Ji-un. Ambassador Park, as the challenged party, you have the right to select weapons. The speaker pulled away the black cloth, revealing dozens of weapons from across the galaxy: energy blades, pulse disruptors, gravity hammers, neural whips, and many others Ji-un couldn't even name. She stepped forward and carefully examined the display. Tae-ho watched with barely concealed amusement. Ji-un's hand moved across the weapons, passing over the most deadly options. Finally, her hand settled on what appeared to be 2 simple wooden staffs. A murmur of confusion spread through the crowd. These, Ji-un said clearly. The speaker raised an eyebrow but nodded. The challenged has chosen combat staffs from the Terran regions. Tae-ho took his staff, testing its weight with a frown. You choose primitive sticks against a Beck warrior? Ji-un took her own staff. Sometimes the simplest tools are the most effective. The speaker moved back. Combat will continue until surrender, unconsciousness, or my intervention. Begin when the tone sounds. The speaker retreated to a raised platform at the edge of the arena. Ji-un and Tae-ho moved to opposite sides of the circle, each taking their stance. Ji-un held her staff in the traditional guard position her grandfather had taught her, feet planted firmly in the blue sand. A high, clear tone rang out across the arena. Tae-ho didn't waste a second. He charged forward with surprising speed for his size, bringing his staff down in a powerful overhead strike that would have split Ji-un in half if it had connected. She sidestepped at the last possible moment, feeling the rush of air as the staff crashed into the sand where she had stood. The crowd roared. Before Ji-un could counter, Taeho spun with incredible agility, sweeping his staff in a horizontal arc. This time, Ji-un wasn't quite fast enough. The tip of his staff caught her shoulder, sending a shock of pain through her body as she stumbled backward. Taeho pressed his advantage, launching a series of powerful strikes. Ji-un blocked what she could, dodged others, but several blows found their mark. A hit to her side, another glancing blow to her thigh. Each impact sent waves of pain through her body. The human delegation watched in horror as their ambassador was driven back across the arena. "Is this the best Earth can offer?" Taeho taunted, not even breathing hard. "Your species is as weak as I suspected." Ji-un tasted blood in her mouth. Her body screamed in pain, but her mind remained clear. She was watching, learning, adapting. "Maybe," she gasped, circling away from another strike. "But we're stubborn." Taeho laughed and launched another attack sequence. This time, however, Ji-un moved differently. Instead of trying to match his strength, she redirected it, using the momentum of his own strikes against him. When his staff came crashing down, she pivoted, causing his blow to hit empty air. The force of his miss threw him slightly off balance. For the first time, Ji-un struck back, landing a quick hit to Taeho's knee joint. The Beck warrior grunted in surprise more than pain, but his attack rhythm broke. A murmur spread through the crowd. The human was still standing. "Interesting," Taeho said, reassessing his opponent. "You have some skill after all." Ji-un didn't respond. She needed to conserve her energy. But a plan was forming in her mind as she continued to study Taeho's fighting style. The Beck warrior was powerful and skilled, but predictable. His techniques followed patterns she could learn. Taeho attacked again, this time more cautiously. Ji-un continued her defensive strategy, taking hits when necessary but watching, always watching. With each exchange, she understood more about how he moved, where his strength lay, and where he might be vulnerable. The battle had only just begun. 20 minutes into the duel, the arena had fallen into a tense silence. What had started as an expected slaughter had evolved into something no one anticipated. Ji-un's tunic was torn and spotted with blood. Bruises marked her visible skin, and she favored her right leg. Yet she remained standing, circling the increasingly frustrated Beck warrior. Taeho's initial confidence had given way to confusion, then anger. His powerful strikes repeatedly missed their target or were deflected in ways that threw him off balance. Sweat now glistened on his gray skin, something few in the audience had ever seen from a Beck. "Stand still and fight properly," Taeho growled, lunging forward with his staff. Ji-un spun away from the attack, using her staff to tap the back of his knee as he passed. The blow wasn't powerful, but it struck precisely where she had hit several times before. Taeho stumbled momentarily before regaining his footing. "I am fighting," Ji-un replied calmly. "Just not how you expected." She had been watching his movements carefully, identifying patterns in his attacks. The Beck fighting style was powerful but rigid, following traditional forms that had likely remained unchanged for centuries. After 15 minutes of defensive fighting, Ji-un had begun to predict his moves. Taeho roared and charged again, swinging his staff in a wide arc. Instead of retreating, Ji-un stepped inside his guard. She struck 3 precise blows in quick succession, one to his wrist, another to his elbow, and a third to a spot just below his throat where she had noticed a thinner plate of natural armor. The Beck warrior staggered back, coughing. For the first time, genuine surprise showed in his yellow eyes. In the stands, the human delegation leaned forward in disbelief. Han Jaeol gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles turned white. "Impossible," whispered a crystal being seated near the humans. "How is she still fighting?" Ji-un circled Taeho, her breathing controlled despite her injuries. "You're strong, War Commander. Stronger than I could ever be. But strength isn't everything." Taeho steadied himself. "What trickery is this?" No human should be able to withstand Beck combat techniques. Not trickery. Adaptation. Ji-un kept moving, never staying still. Humans survived on Earth not because we were the strongest, but because we could adapt faster than anything else. She dodged another attack, this time countering with a strike to the same spot below his throat. Taeho coughed again, harder. You've been fighting the same way for thousands of years, Ji-un continued. Your movements follow patterns. After watching long enough, I can see what comes next. Understanding dawned in Taeho's eyes. He changed his stance, attempting a different attack pattern. Ji-un adjusted almost immediately, blocking his new approach and landing another precision strike. In the council box, the speaker leaned toward a colleague. Is this why humans advanced so quickly? This ability to learn during combat? The crowd watched in amazement as the pattern of the fight shifted. Ji-un was no longer merely defending. She moved with purpose now, each strike targeting specific points on the Beck warrior's body. She wasn't trying to overpower him, an impossible task given their physical differences. Instead, she attacked nerve clusters, joint connections, and the few gaps in his natural armor that she had identified. Taeho fought back fiercely, and several of his blows connected with devastating force. One strike caught Ji-un in the ribs, and the crack was audible throughout the arena. She stumbled but did not fall. Why continue? Taeho demanded, breathing heavily now. You're broken. Surrender with honor. Ji-un straightened despite the pain. Because this isn't just about me. It's about humanity's place among the stars. She moved forward again, but this time Taeho was ready. He swung his staff with all his might. The blow connected with Ji-un's staff, shattering it and sending her sprawling to the ground. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. The human delegation stood in horror. Taeho stood over Ji-un, his staff raised for a final blow. It's over, human. Ji-un looked up at him, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Then, to everyone's shock, she smiled. You fight well, War Commander. But there's something you should know about humans. And what is that? He asked, staff still raised. We study history. Ji-un's voice carried clearly across the now silent arena. I've read the ancient Beck combat codes. Section 12, paragraph 4 states that true victory comes not from destroying an opponent, but from demonstrating superior wisdom. Taeho froze, his eyes widening. I could have targeted your vital organs when you left them exposed in your third attack sequence, Ji-un continued, still on the ground. I could have struck the nerve cluster behind your ear that would have paralyzed you during your overhead swing. But I chose not to. She slowly pushed herself up to a sitting position. I chose to demonstrate that humans understand something the Beck seem to have forgotten, that true strength lies in knowing when not to kill, even when you can. The arena was absolutely silent now. Even the council speaker seemed stunned. Taeho lowered his staff slowly, staring at the injured human with new eyes. No one has invoked that clause in 10,000 years, he said quietly. Perhaps, Ji-un replied, it's time someone did. Ji-un stood at the large window of the diplomatic vessel, watching the stars as the ship prepared to return to Earth. 1 week had passed since the duel. Her body was healing slowly, 3 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and bruises covering most of her torso. The doctors had recommended she stay in medical for another week, but she had insisted on attending today's final council session. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door slid open to reveal Hanjail, carrying a datapad and wearing a rare smile. How are you feeling, Ambassador? He asked. Like I was hit by a shuttle, Ji-un replied with a small laugh that made her wince. What's the latest? Hanjail handed her the datapad. 7 more species have requested formal diplomatic relations with Earth. That brings the total to 23 since the duel. He paused. And the Beck Empire has officially withdrawn their objection to humanity's full council membership. Ji-un nodded, scrolling through the reports. And War Commander Kim? That's actually why I came. He's requested to see you before our departure. He's waiting in the ship's conference room. Jiun took a deep breath and straightened her formal diplomatic attire, careful not to show the pain the movement caused.
Then we shouldn't keep him waiting.
When Jiun entered the conference room, she was surprised to find Taeho without his usual warrior's armor. Instead, he wore what appeared to be formal diplomatic attire for the Beck, a simple dark tunic with symbols of office rather than battle honors.
Taeho rose when she entered, another surprise. Beck warriors traditionally remained seated to show they feared no threat.
Ambassador Park, he said, his deep voice quieter than she remembered from the arena.
War Commander, she replied, carefully taking his seat across from him.
That title no longer applies, Taeho said.
The Emperor has appointed me cultural emissary to Earth. Jiun couldn't hide her surprise. That's unexpected. For me as well.
Taeho's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. My defeat has caused quite a stir in the Empire.
I didn't defeat you, Jiun pointed out. No.
You did something more dangerous, you made us think.
Taeho leaned forward. For 50,000 years, the Beck have measured strength by the ability to destroy.
We rose to power through conquest, held it through fear. He gestured to the window where distant stars shone. During our 5 centuries of isolation, we saw no need to change. The galaxy would wait for us. We were the Beck, after all.
Jiun listened carefully, sensing the importance of this moment.
Then a small human female refuses to be broken, invokes an ancient principle of our combat code that even most Beck had forgotten, and suddenly, the Emperor is questioning 10,000 years of tradition.
Taeho shook his head in wonder. The council voted today, Jiun said.
Humanity has been granted full membership.
I know. I spoke in favor of it.
Taeho reached into a pouch at his belt and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth.
I came to give you this.
He placed it on the table and carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a small medallion made of dark metal, marked with ancient Beck symbols.
This is the Medal of Worthy Opposition, Taeho explained. It's our highest honor for a non-Beck.
Only 17 have ever been awarded in our history. Jiun carefully picked up the medallion.
Thank you. I'm honored.
You should be.
The last recipient lived 8,000 years ago. Taeho's yellow eyes studied her. Ambassador, there is something I must ask you.
Of course. During our combat, you said you could have targeted vital points but chose not to.
Was that true, or a clever tactic?
Jiun met his gaze steadily.
It was true.
My grandfather taught me that the purpose of learning combat was not to destroy opponents, but to protect what matters. Sometimes that protection comes through restraint.
Taeho nodded slowly. Humans are more dangerous than we realized. How so?
You adapt. During our fight, I saw you learning my techniques as we battled. No species we've encountered does that so quickly. His expression grew serious. The Beck took 50 generations to develop our combat forms.
You began countering them after 20 minutes. A comfortable silence fell between them. Finally, Taeho rose.
My ship departs for Earth in 3 days.
I look forward to learning more about your people.
And I yours, Jiun replied, standing as well despite the pain in her ribs. As Taeho turned to leave, he paused at the door.
One more thing, Ambassador. The Council has been in existence for 50,000 years.
In all that time, they have relied on the same protocols, the same diplomatic approaches.
Yes? They're watching humans very carefully now.
Your kind has a way of changing things. Taeho's mouth definitely curved into a smile this time. The galaxy was stagnant.
I suspect it won't be anymore.
After he left, Jiun returned to the window, the medallion still in her hand.
The stars seemed brighter somehow, full of new possibilities.
Humanity had found its place among them not through strength or technology, but through the very adaptability that had allowed them to survive on Earth. Grandfather, she whispered to the stars, you were right after all. 2 weeks later, as Earth came into view through the ship's main viewport, the crew gathered to watch their approach. Jiun stood among them, thinking about how much had changed. What had begun as a simple diplomatic mission had transformed humanity's place in the galaxy. And somewhere out there, other species were watching, wondering what these adaptable humans would do next.